Natasha, welcome. I'm very excited to have you here again. And today we are going to talk about career in events. We had a similar discussion already in 2020. You were a guest on a past Event Planners Talk live stream, and you shared your journey as a founder, as entrepreneur, as a founder of an events agency. So today we are going to focus on career in events, specifically in the past 2 years. What has changed and what new skills have you acquired that you think are important to stay competitive in today's landscape?
Yeah.
So before we begin, perhaps you can give us a short introduction, who you are, what type of events you organize, and we go straight to the questions.
Yeah, so for anyone who hasn't heard us speak before, I have a small events company. We do event management and production across a range of different types of events. So pre-pandemic, that was festivals, outdoor events, and conferences. So moving between the corporate and the outdoor space. And then over the last 2 years, obviously delved into the world of online. So we have a little strap line of inside, outside, online. And we blend those together and have a really exciting portfolio of events and clients.
Excellent. Let's get into the first question. What skills have you found important to your job, and what skills have you acquired in the past 2 years?
I think the biggest thing in terms of skill acquisition over the last 2 years has been from a more technical point of view, having to understand platforms, the requirements to deliver an online event. Obviously, a lot of clients are very familiar with Zoom and Google Meet and think it's very easy, but to actually deliver something professional and polished, that requires a lot more input, a lot of people, a lot of skills. So learning about that and getting my head around that, that's been a really big skill set to just to learn, and also just staying on top of that. But I think the skills needed to deliver events are the same. And what we've had to do is learn to be more flexible and adaptable and keep coming up with solutions and be really solution focused. So all the time have to have that plan B, which as event planners, most people would have, but maybe now you have a plan C as well. And things are so changeable and so adaptable. So it's just being prepared to think on your feet and adapt to the situation as it changes and has kept changing over the past 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Many event tech platforms have emerged in the past years. How many event tech platforms can you operate?
Oh gosh, quite a few. So I've done lots of very classic Zoom events, but also done a lot on StreamYard that we're using now, Hopin. I probably 3 or 4 others, some bespoke ones and some more off-the-shelf platforms. But it's really interesting, and it's good to see the different limitations and the innovations on different platforms. And I know we've probably spoken about it before about the inclusivity on some of the platforms. And I've done a lot of work with the visual impairment charity. So learned a lot about how the different platforms actually work for inclusivity, and been really interested in that space. There's a lot we've learned from our mutual friend about how the different platforms work with doing captioning, but also what I've learned particularly is how that doesn't always translate to the visual impairment world. So it's been a really interesting journey, and that's probably, it's a very niche skill, obviously, I've learned there, but it's been really interesting to look at the inclusivity available on these platforms.
Yes, absolutely. It's very good that you bring this point. There are several people watching us now, so if you have any questions as we go along, don't hesitate to ask during the live stream, and we'll get your question as we go. Natasha, how the industry has evolved in the past 2 years?
Oh gosh, I think lots has changed and lots has remained the same. I think in every scenario now, and at the start of every conversation with a client, we have to think about, is this a hybrid event? What do we do if the situation changes, and does it go virtual? So that's always a question in the back of, I think, any event planner's mind at the moment. And that probably wouldn't have been a question 18 months ago. Constantly the questions around COVID, testing and access requirements to events. Obviously, the online world, we didn't need to think about that. You could attend whatever the situation. But now going back into a live environment, and particularly with the change, every country's got different rules, but in the UK particularly, we've had some fast changing rules with maybe somewhat more lenient than other countries. But the question is how much you enforce at your event and what's appropriate for that audience, both in terms of keeping the event safe, but also, for instance, I'm working on a film industry event. The film industry is still very much subject to very tight regulations around COVID testing. So how do you reflect that into your event to make people feel safe and able to come? And then particularly affecting the outdoor event industry, which is where my work is predominantly based in the summer, is just crew and equipment. There's been a huge amount of people leaving the events industry. There's been this huge influx of events. Every event hasn't happened for a while. There are new events, or people are making up for lost time and pushing out events at different times of year. And in a particular example, in the UK, we've got the Queen's Jubilee and also the Commonwealth Games. So huge amounts of stock and people are already working on those events. And it's just a perfect storm still this year, and we're seeing escalating costs, and those aren't necessarily able to be reflected back. It's sort of going off piste a little bit, but I was having a conversation with a colleague, and for some of these events like Glastonbury or like the festivals that have rolled over tickets for a couple of years, their income is already sat there. They've been holding that income for 2 years, but what's happened in those 2 years is all the costs have escalated, and people are in a really precarious position with their expenditure budgets being much higher than anticipated, but their income remaining very static. So I think it's a really interesting time to be in the industry. It'll be really interesting to see the developments over the next couple of years, or the next year even.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. The short-term planning as well has evolved, and a lot of events that were planned last year for September, October, November will be taking place in summer, which also tends to be the holiday season. So the seasonality of events has changed, and it's a very, very interesting situation right now. So we will have to see how it develops.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about the following question? How do you know that the client or the company is the right fit for you to work with?
I think this is a really interesting one, and it's something I sort of drift back to really to the start of my events career. Some people will know, and others won't. I worked for Cancer Research UK, which is one of the biggest charities in the UK, and I felt really super passionate about that as a cause. And that has sort of carried forward now. I mean, obviously, I can't feel passionate like that about every single cause or client. But I think the passion for the subject or what that industry is trying to do is what makes something really exciting and a good fit. And I think when you can demonstrate passion, that then translates into your work. So I know when we were having a chat, I mentioned a few weeks ago, we were looking at a contract, and it was just obvious to myself and my team we didn't have the same passion that the client had about the subject. And it was a really uncomfortable moment where we thought, oh, can we do this? Can we deliver to the best of our ability when we don't feel this way? What's actually happened is we're not going to be working on that. We might work with them in the future, but about some things that actually do get us excited, as opposed to those events we were particularly talking about. So I think passion and enthusiasm for the cause is a really, really important thing to think about. And like I said, that can come in many forms. Just thinking, and I've got a client that is in the gift card space. Doesn't sound that exciting, but it's very exciting, the innovations they try and take to their events. I'm doing a conference later in the year for an association that's part of the police, and whilst on paper it might not sound that exciting, but their enthusiasm and again their appetite for innovation and ambition is really, really exciting. So for me, it's just important to get that passion because you feel excited about what you're doing. But then you also might, at the start of your career, be thinking about the other benefits, and it's not all financial, but as a freelancer or an independent, how long does that contract last? What longevity is it beyond the contract? So will you do this contract and get skills that will take you forwards and develop you, or ideas you can take into other areas? No, have a whole heap of passion projects that maybe are not the most lucrative, but they really fuel my drive for the rest of the projects I work on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good combination to have the projects that help you financially, but also projects that really inspire you, add you to build your career, and also help with your network, to build network. Because I also learned a bit later in my career that some projects help you so much with the network, which you can appreciate only 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And then you can call these people and get help or advice. Network is so important that we should work on our network from the very beginning.
Yeah, community is key.
Community, yeah, community as well. Community is also something that has strengthened during the last 2 years. We all found ourselves part of certain communities or micro tribes that before it wasn't as strong, but right now all these communities, they are online, and it's so much easier to keep in touch and build strong networks, which are also international. I'm so happy about the communities that we created, and we are together part of several of them.
Yes.
Then how do you maintain work-life balance? And maybe that brings us back to the previous question where we talked about the huge amount of work that is available right now, which is great. Right now, I also notice there is the combination of live and virtual, and how do you combine both in staying sane with so much work?
I'm probably not a great ambassador for this question, but I think you're right. There is a lot out there at the moment, and it's very easy to take on too much work. I've been there, I've done it, I made myself ill, and that's not a flag I want to fly. We see a lot of talk about the hustle and the hard work, and yes, working in events is, whether you've got a side hustle or a passion project or whatever you want to call it, that's fine. But we do have to maintain some sort of balance, and rest and recuperation is really important. And I think we've spoken before about putting non-negotiables into your schedule, in your diary. I know when we've spoken, I'm a big lover of the outdoor swimming pool near my house, and so in the summer that's a non-negotiable for me to try and go most days. Over the past 6 to 8 months, I've been training as a Pilates instructor, so that is insanity alongside a busy career, but it's become a non-negotiable in my schedule. Those classes in my week, I have to take those as downtime. And I think it's just also about accepting that sometimes things will be absolutely crazy and you won't have a work-life balance, but then you have to take a step back when you do. So before Christmas, I was flat out, probably at my desk till 8, 9, 10 o'clock every day. I was on my email or working all weekend, every weekend. I was up in the morning. It was just, there was no other thought, no other capacity within me. But now things are a bit calmer and I'm able to take some time and step back. And so I try to be a little bit stricter about not starting before 9 a.m., not finishing too much after 5, having those non-negotiable parts of my week and my day. And I think it's just really important, and recognizing that, but also just, don't do what I did and get to the point where you're making yourself ill, because it's not big, it's not clever, and it won't give you a long career. But I think, going back to what I was saying about passionate, if you really love what you do, you have fun and you enjoy the people you work with, being around them, I think that makes all the difference. And having a really strong team on the event you're working on, people who know you really well and can see your weaknesses or when you're tired. I've got some really good colleagues that I work very closely with, particularly on the outdoor events. And they're really good at spotting when I'm not at my best. And equally, I can spot when they're not. And that just means they can step forward a little bit more and just ease the situation. And I think that's a really privileged position to be in. So sometimes when things are too much, having someone who can step up and help you out is really important.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. It's so important to recognize your limits and consciously take the time off, because certain things are just not urgent. And if you do it after the weekend, that's fine. I have one colleague, actually, she has as her email signature, I understand that we work on different time zones. Don't rush to answer this email if you are on a different time zone than me. And I found it brilliant, because especially if you work with US, you receive your emails late at night, and it's absolutely fine then to respond the next day. And I appreciate this so much, because we have this urgency.
And I think email creates so much work. And I think I actually, just whilst I was killing some time preparing for this, I went through all the unread emails in my inbox, which, inbox 0 is a very distant dream. And I went through the unread emails, and sometimes I do mark them unread because I want to come back to them. But many of them I was thinking, okay, the date on this is early January. I've either dealt with it or it doesn't need to be in my inbox anymore. It's gone, it's passed. And it just shows you how much time we waste on email. So I've tried very hard to stop copying in people that don't need to be there. If lots of people need to be on an email, blind copy them, because they might all need the information, but they don't all need everyone acknowledging that they've received the information. And also just not saying thank you. So many people email and go, oh, thanks for that. That's great. You've just taken 30 seconds of my day and interrupted whatever I was doing. You just don't need it. So maybe I come across rude, but I try not to do that anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also stopped doing this thank you emails, and I hope the person on the other side appreciates that no more email is coming because we closed it and we appreciate of each other. It's unverbal communication, I think. So that's very true. And yeah, there are so many notifications actually coming from everywhere, from Slack, from social media, emails. So be very mindful of this as well, and also know how to turn notifications. Actually, I have an article on this, so I might share in the comments after this how to be more mindful of your work environment. It's a very good topic. Maybe we can dedicate another discussion just to this because it's also very, very important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are really horrified that I don't have my email on my phone.
Oh, really? Okay.
Only when I'm on site. So I don't,
Yeah.
the rest of the time, I don't have my email on my phone. And I actually find it very stressful having it on my phone because immediately I turn the notifications off now. That helps, but also defeats the point of having it on your phone. But yeah, my stress levels go through the roof when I'm hounded by email. And, you know, no one's died, nothing's gone wrong.
Yeah,
So,
and if people need you, they can reach you on your phone if it's really, really urgent. You know, there was 1 month when I deleted Instagram from my phone. That was great. I can highly recommend if there is an app that creates certain level of urgency or addiction, definitely delete it and see what happens, which is nothing happens.
yeah. Yeah, I think we all become very dependent on these things and think it would be a nightmare without them. But, you know, the world doesn't stop turning. I've got a friend that got rid of WhatsApp and he refuses. He now has what we call in the UK a burner phone, so a second mobile. And if somebody really insists on using WhatsApp, usually me on site at an event, he just has a second phone. And
that's a very good tip. Definitely, it's worthwhile experimenting with deleting different apps occasionally, and it's a good practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just before we continue, I want to acknowledge Diana and Yunia who are here today, and they commented before, share their thoughts about skills that event managers need nowadays and communities, the importance of communities and the sense of togetherness. So if anyone watching us has questions, don't hesitate to ask. Now it's your opportunity. And we are going to the next one, talking about finding work and clients to work with. So how do we approach this?
Well, I'm very, very lucky in that 90% of my work is word of mouth. So I have a lot of recommendations or repeat clients. And I never forget how lucky I am to have that. I've got a really strong network locally where I live, but also, you know, lots of clients pass on my details as well, and other event companies. You know, we've talked about community and how great it was that those communities have developed. A really big contract I've got this year is from another events company who just couldn't do the piece of work, and it didn't really fit with their schedule, and they passed that on. So I appreciate I am very, very lucky in that respect. But I do also look at tender opportunities and do the very occasional tender. But I appreciate I'm in a lucky position. But if someone else is freelance or starting out, there are really great Facebook groups. And I think for me, they are one of the most valuable sources of work. And lots of people look for, you know, especially last minute contracts. Or sometimes at the moment, it's just, there's probably 10 jobs a day on some of these Facebook groups. And I think that's really important. You know, and it's a good way to network and just be seen, to comment on things, and your name gets, you know, seen, and you become a bit more known. But also you can reach out to people, get in touch with companies who might need your services. You know, particularly if you're a freelancer looking to work within an events company, just reach out. I always keep people's details, because there's lots of different things that come up. And I say it to suppliers and other people, people looking for work. I don't have anything now, but everything can change in 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Anything can change, and when there is a change, companies need your urgency. So having this flexibility is so important.
Yeah.
We have a question from Ella, who is asking, what's the best way to get into the events career as a student leaving A levels?
Okay, so I'm guessing because Ella's doing A levels, she's in the UK, so I can probably help a bit more with that. I would say volunteering and getting experience is way more important than, well, for me, and I think a lot of events people agree with this, it's way more important to have experience over education in some ways. So look at local charities, they're always needing support on events. Festivals have really good volunteering opportunities if you're looking for that more outdoor side of things. Get in touch with conferences, events, exhibitions. Lots of them will have volunteering opportunities. Get in touch with event companies and offer your services. I know it's not super easy for people to work for free, and I super appreciate that. What I would say to that is, a lot of these events do only function because of volunteers. So your role is very, very important. But so many people I know that have started volunteering for a season or even a couple of events, then end up in a paid role. If you are good, someone will see you and someone will pick you up and carry you forward in your career. But I think also just networking doesn't have to be that horrible, scary thing. I hate to be in a room of people making small talk, but reaching out, following people, commenting on social media, I think just having your name known, and then you're in the right place, you're being seen, and you are seeing things. I think that's really, really important. And just keeping in touch with what's going on in the industry, which again you can just do on social media, industry magazines, industry websites. And if you don't know what they are, I think these days we're so lucky, you can Google events industry magazines and it's going to come up. So if you don't know something, just Google it.
Yeah, absolutely. Visibility on social media is very, very important. And I know so many of my network through social media. And Natasha, we never met, but we know each other through social media. And it's a great opportunity on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn to reach out to companies that inspire you, and you want to be part of their event, or is there also a specific event that you particularly want to volunteer at? So so I think it really helps to be very specific. So show that you've done a research, because for me, a lot of companies, they pitch to be featured on my blog, for example. They want an article, and there is a very big difference when someone writes, hi, we are this and that, and we can provide information about XY, but the really personalized emails stand out. So, hi, Irina, I'm following your blog. I saw that you posted this article on this month, and you tweeted about something else, and you had a live with Natasha or whatever. So when you show that you followed and you've done your research and you are very knowledgeable of what you want, then it makes you stand out immediately, because many people just don't do this. It's very generic email. Hi, are you looking for volunteers? I'm a graduate. I'm looking for job opportunities. These emails, they get ignored straight away. So do your research, be personalize the email communication, and pretty much you have good chances.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's so easy to reach out to people, and most people will be flattered. I mean, even if you don't think they will be, if somebody reached out to me and said, "You really inspire me," I'd be like, "Oh, thank you so much." You have to remember, and I think I say this a lot, social media is social media. It's the best part of someone. So just because someone looks glossy and shiny and really successful doesn't mean they don't want to hear from you and they don't want their ego flattered. You are only seeing the bits they want you to see. So you don't know that they're not secretly, like I was earlier, at the end of last year, thinking, "Oh my God, where can I find someone to help me?" And the two people that have now got jobs for me, that was, one was an email to me. Well, it was actually to someone else and it got passed to me and we met up and she just reached out and she said, "You know what? I really would like a job. Do you think you have anything?" And, the timing was right. And the other person, I asked for help very specifically for something. And I just thought, "You are brilliant. You need to stay around me." And so, you can really create your own opportunities. And I don't know if they're watching. If they are, they're both brilliant. If they're not, they're brilliant and they're mine. But, just reach out because you just don't know when an opportunity is going to come available.
Yeah, very good. Okay, going to the next question. Any tips what students, future employees should do to stay competitive?
I think I'm going to go off piste as usual, but there's a lot of people, and I mean, we've mentioned it here, being visible on social media and having a brand. Yeah, great, do that, but it's not the be all and end all. I think be authentic to yourself, be nice, be reliable. Don't try and be something you're not, because you know what? This industry is hard. And when you've been working for 20 hours straight and you're literally on your knees, people aren't going to see that shiny personal brand. They're going to see the real you. So make sure whatever you put out is the real you. And I think, that's not really staying competitive, but it's meaning you're consistent in what you're putting out and consistent in the person you're being. And people like that. I can sit and have a conversation with the client and say, "Do you know what? I got that wrong." Or, "Do you know what? Maybe I had too much work on before Christmas and I'm sorry if that impacted on your project." And I think people just like that human element. But I think also, more specifically when you're looking how to stay relevant, keep up with things like your Twitter chat, the Event Planners Talk Twitter chat. I'm guilty of not realizing how valuable that was as a resource. And I think we've maybe had the conversation, and we spoke yesterday and I said, "Oh, I keep missing it because I'm out playing netball, good non-negotiable and work-life balance." But previously I just thought, well, it's just a chat on Twitter. But actually the opportunities that has afforded me being part of that community with you, with Heidi, the Mice Guru, with Meg, learning about sustainability, with Sabrina, sharing social media tips. I only know that whole group of people because I involved myself in that community, and a whole heap of people that I probably haven't mentioned. But, be on top of that, watch industry webinars when you have time, get the magazines, go to, Convex, event production show, the meeting show, whichever ones interest you. Try and get to those things and just know what's going on. I think that's for me more important than someone having a shiny, glossy Instagram page.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping up with all the trends, what people are doing that is publicly available to find online. There is so much information. What events are happening? There are these formal events like Convex, the meeting show, but there are also smaller events for organized by hotels, for example, or by smaller companies. So it's definitely important to know the different actors operating in the industry. Yeah, and knowledge and being up to date definitely will keep you ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, wrapping up. If anyone has a question, that's your last chance to ask on the live, but you can also get in touch later with Natasha or with myself and ask your question. But for now, let's talk about and conclude this live with the resources that you can recommend for education and inspiration.
So definitely event planners talk, and I'm not just saying that because we're obviously you're hosting me today. But I think I've learned a lot. But in terms of learning, I think for me, industry blogs and articles are really, I mean, I just got on the shelf behind because I try and make everyone read these, that the two magazines behind me are specific more to the outdoor sort of things. But really trying to stay ahead of what's going on. So you can just read those news articles. I have a Google alert on my phone just for any event news. I ignore it 90% of the time, but if there's a big story, it's good to know. So for instance, last week in the storm, the roof blew off the O2 Arena. Well, how does that impact the events industry? And you can, have a think about that. In terms of inspiration, go to events, go to exhibitions. Depends what your niche is, but at the moment, so a few weeks ago, I went with my team to the Brit Awards, and we've taken loads of inspiration from that. We don't have that sort of budget on any of our events, but we're able to take inspiration from the lighting on the tables for me change color. So I'm like, oh, how can I take that to an event? I'm sure I can do it even without a massive budget. And just the stage layout or how they did certain transitions, all these things you can take inspiration. Museums are great if you're working on something really creative. Go look how they've put together an exhibition. I love going to the V&A in London. Look at how they've presented the items. Could you take that into a conference exhibition? Look at just different ways of advertising. I was up at COP26. They had these great lamppost banners. I sent them back to a client in Cheltenham. And we said, oh, they're great. We've only ever seen, short ones before. And these went really high. And they're more impactful. So you just everywhere you go, you can take inspiration. I think just always be open to looking for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Be open and go to events, speak to people, read books as well.
Yeah,
social
definitely.
media. Yeah,
book club. But I think it's really, really important to just not look at it as a very closed industry. I mean,
yeah.
I walked down this high street and seen a great shop window display and thought, oh, I can do something with that. And it's
Also other industries. I'm quite often looking at other industries, trying to attend events from other industries. Architecture inspires me as well.
yeah. I think I've probably been guilty in the past of just being very focused on this is events and this is how events run, and I just I want inspiration on a stage set, and I might just look at other conferences or other award shows. And actually, if you look outside of that, there's so much inspiration to be had that you can then translate in a different way. So I think it's just always being on the lookout, and that's where where your mobile phone is great. You can take a picture, you can save something on social media, and sometimes I look back a year later and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, and now I have somewhere to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Lots of insights. A topic that stood out for me that we kind of started talking a bit more about is well-being. So I think there is something there we should definitely develop for future conversations, how to have a good work-life balance and manage your life with
We
notifications.
should probably try and crowdsource
I haven't mentioned the fantastic Digital Explorer initiative that we had for the Event Planner Stock Digital Festival. That was your and Meg's idea. And you came up with this idea that while having this digital event, we have a challenge which is called the Digital Explorer. And you go during the day and complete a task. Is it to go to your favorite coffee shop, to go to touristic site, to go to your favorite, what was there?
I think we tried event venues. Yeah, it was like a mini fam trip.
Yeah, a mini fam trip in your own destination to showcase it to the other attendees. And it's incredible. It was 2 years ago, and I still remember this. It really got an impact on me because, one, I work in destination marketing, so it's a great idea. But two is looking with different eyes at your own destination. Here we can relate to inspiration, because inspiration can be found everywhere. And yes, if you work online, long days, conference, or your attendees from all over the world are tuning in to watch a virtual conference, it is so refreshing to actually tell them, hey, go out and go to see your own city. So there is something there as well that I want to continue, because I think this festival was the beginning of something and not just beginning and end. So
Well, Heidi has a group on Instagram to Event Profs Walk.
Exactly. So this is a great initiative of our colleague called Event Profs Walk. And there are 10K challenges on a monthly basis. And that's also in our pocket, the phone. You can see really your progress, how many steps you've taken per day, compare your days, how much you moved. It's really great. And an app, the Strava app, we also used, which is showcases the route that you've taken. And this is particularly I use when I go to different destinations, and it shows me, because I don't know the destination, and it shows me where I walked and what I visited.
Yeah, I think we set up a Strava club that week, or group. So it was, you could be very private about what you're sharing. So any event can do that. And
this is a sense of community. Back to the event. And we have additional comment from Gernot Marx, and talking about the skills that we discussed in the first question. A very important skill is the competence in emotional labor, so the regulation of emotions in others and yourself. Human interaction, which is a key at events, is mainly influenced by emotions. But we do speak about technical marketing skills, ideas, and innovation. So much is focused on the outside rather than the inside. This is a very good comment, and definitely a conversation in its own, I think, because there's so much in this. And with Gernot, we will host a webinar on change management in March. So Gernot always has very good insights when it comes to psychology. So yeah, do you have anything to add on this, on the skills?
I think it's a really important point. You want to think about how your attendees feel, and it's about making, we probably don't really think about it in an emotional context, but we should, how do they feel when they arrive at the venue? How easy have you made it for them to get there? Have they got stressed on the way? What feelings are the talks or sessions evoking? What feeling do you leave them with? I think it's really important to think about that. And think if you leave people with a good feeling, they talk about the event, and then that is your community, and does the marketing for you. The event I'm doing later in the year, they keep talking about a previous event, and it's not last year's iteration, it's 2 or 3 years ago. And so I keep thinking, right, we need to make people remember our one. And I think that's important. So obviously something happened there emotionally, people took something away. So I think, yeah, it's a really valid point and something probably worth a whole conversation on.
Yeah, something that comes to mind in regard to this is the event design and designing the aspects of light, color, and space and sound. So how people really move in the space and how the light and the sound make them feel.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot to talk in this. So maybe we'll get in touch and develop this topic further. So thank you, Gernot, for this comment.
Really good point. I had a conversation this morning about a conference all being in the same room and how we make the room different to change it up to keep people fresh. So yeah, really good conversation.
Excellent.
Lots to think about.
So Natasha, how can people get in touch with you?
So Instagram, after everything I've said on social media, LinkedIn and Instagram are probably the quickest ways, or Twitter. But also my website is natasharussell.co.uk, and there's contact and my email address on there. So yeah, I'm really open to people getting in touch and asking questions, and yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much again for this fantastic chat. Thank you everyone watching today and for your comments and questions. And we'll see you at the next talk.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.